Hey, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking with Tom Bailey. Tom Bailey, great connecting with you all the way in the UK. You are the founder of Succeed Through Speaking. You're also the host of the podcast with the same name, Succeed Through Speaking. It's great to have you on the show today because I love talking about this topic, and I think people are always looking for tools on how to become a better speaker. People are so scared of it. There's so many elements. And so let's talk about the formula for speaking, right? We'll kind of back into the courage and the confidence. But I think a lot of times people, if they have a formula, then they can actually increase their confidence and courage once they kind of see that. So how do you teach people? What's the formula you use? And welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely, John. Thank you so much for having me here. And I think I'll just really set the scene a little bit just for a second. So the reason why I do this is because I spent the first 30 years of my life becoming an expert at avoiding public speaking. I had social anxiety, fear of public speaking, and it really did hold me back in my career, in business, and in life as well. So I went on a long journey to overcome this fear of speaking, and it took me about 10 years, but the formula I've now reduced into about 10 weeks. So really the people that I'm looking to help are those who feel like they're the best kept secret in their industry. They maybe got a fear of the camera or speaking on stages, and they want to raise their profile through speaking.
Yeah.
So 5 Ps, if you want me to just run through them really quickly, and I'm sure we can dive into them in more detail. So the first 2 things are profile and product. And the reason why I do this is because I work with entrepreneurs, business owners, and there's no point speaking and presenting unless you know who you are and what you're talking about. So we get really clear on your profile, your niche, your message, your market, and then also how to talk about your products and services in a way that change and transform your clients' lives.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've got those 2 nailed, I then get people to start podcasting, because sometimes we think about speaking, we think about keynotes on stages in front of thousands of people, but really the best way to start learning to speak and getting used to sharing your message is through podcasting. So that's the 3rd P. And then the 4th P is presenting. Again, virtual stages first, comfort of your own home, speaking all over the world on virtual stages, and then presenting on live stages. And the final P is profit, because again, I work with business owners, entrepreneurs. The reason why we speak as a business owner is to raise our profile, amplify our authority, attract new clients, increase our income. And so those are the 5 Ps. And that's really the steps that I take people on to go from hidden to a speaker.
Yeah, I love it. I want to dive into a couple things. I want to dive into, the first 2 Ps, profit and product. I want to talk about the message, because I think a lot of times people have a unique profile. They're really good at doing things, and they don't even realize that is unique to them. And so they don't realize that their voice, that their message is something special that can really influence other people. And so they'll justify it by saying, oh, there's so many people who do this. There's so many people, blah, 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 blah. What I have to say is so simplistic, or what I have to say isn't important, can't really change. But it really can. It really can. And so can you kind of dive into that? Because for those people who are listening now and later, as this gets repurposed all the time, I want people to realize that their message is unique.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always talk about getting your message to market, and that's so important when it comes to speaking. And like you said then, ultimately there's a few parts that make up your message. And one of them is your story, your message, why you do what you do, your purpose, your passion. And that's really important. And for most business owners and coaches that, especially like me, they've been through a journey. So that story is therefore unique. Nobody can tell your story in a better way than you can.
Right.
So you want to get really clear on that. And another part of message as well is there's 3 Ps that I like to talk about a lot is people, problem, and promise. So people is, who do you serve? Problem is, what problem do they have? And then the promise is, what outcome or solution are you going to promise them? And once you've got these 3, they help you craft your message in a really particular way that speaks to your ideal clients on their pain points, their outcomes, their solutions. And that's really important.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because I think that's kind of the hook if I would look at it, right? So the problem, which is, as a business coach, my clients are successful people who are successful and stuck, right? And they need to get unstuck. And so when I promote, if you come to, any of my stuff, you will say, successful, ? Stuck. My client's pain is brought out by that stuckness, right? And so I think it's really important. That takes a lot of time sometimes to simplify how to bring out the pain without it being a negative, but talk about how you do that, because I think that's where sometimes people get it wrong. They say, I speak on boom, but they're not bringing out the pain to raise people's awareness of how you can actually be the promise, be the solution.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one thing I'll just mention here is that people always say start with why, but the mistake that they make is they start with their own why. Ultimately, you want to start with the customer's why.
Well said.
The audience's why. And what's in it for them. That's ultimately what this is about. And we always talk about those two main drivers of towards pleasure, away from pain. People either want to achieve X or they want to move away from, something that's holding them back. So when I think about this message to market match, I talk about your expert positioning statement. So how do you create a statement which positions you as an expert? And how do you become an expert at positioning yourself as well? And I'll just talk about that because that builds on from those 3 Ps that I mentioned.
Yeah, no, please. There's so many Ps. I love it. So
I know. Too many Ps. I think we're on 8 Ps so far. I think I can probably find some more later. So the 3 Ps again, who do you help? With what issue or problem? Result. So people, pain, promise. Because what you then get is the first one is person. Who do you help? You can say, I help introverted entrepreneurs. So that's the first part of your statement is the people. Who are you helping? I help introverted entrepreneurs. And with what pain or problem? To overcome their fear of speaking. So far we've got I help introverted entrepreneurs to overcome their fear of speaking. So that's the person in the pain. And then to get what result? And that for me is to raise their profile as an expert in their industry. So my statement can now be, I help introverted entrepreneurs who have a fear of speaking to raise their profile and become an expert in their industry.
I love that.
That's a really quick way to think about how to get your message to market and get that hook straight away.
Yeah, I love it. And so now let's back into the courage and the confidence to actually speak, right? And then we'll get kind of like how to actually put pen to paper. But now that you kind of have a formula and you say, okay, here's kind of the formula. Now, how do I have the courage and confidence to actually say, I'm actually going to get on a stage or a virtual stage? And then B, once I've decided that, take us through the journey of putting pen to paper to write something that is concise that actually people want to hear.
Yeah, perfect. So courage, let's talk about that one first. I always say that confidence comes from competence. And that's like anything. When you're learning a new skill, the more you practice, the more you do it, the better you get. At some point, you will become competent at that skill. And for me, when it came to public speaking, I always thought, right, I'm here, I can't speak, I'm too scared. 2, I want to be on stage in front of 10,000 people. Like, that's unrealistic. And, let's say you're learning to swim, for example, you don't think, I'm going to go and swim in the Pacific Ocean day 1. You go in the shallow end of the swimming pool, you put your inflatable armbands on. So what I'm getting at here is that speaking is a skill like any other. So for me, you need to start small. You need to get in the shallow end, start making some small progress before you then think about building up to the bigger stages. And what does that look like? It might be recording a 30-second video in your phone, which you then delete. The next one might be a 60-second video that you send to a coach or to somebody that can give you some feedback. You then might build up to being a guest on a podcast at some point, and then you might build up to speaking on virtual stages. And again, it's just a gradual step-by-step progress until you become competent.
Yeah, and sometimes to even practice, I want to add on to kind of your podcast piece, which I want to talk about next, which is do an Instagram live, right? That you
Yeah,
can do, and then you can actually delete it if it doesn't work, right? And
exactly right.
right, but it's kind of beta testing and your audiences, but also just getting yourself kind of just comfortable, right? Getting yourself
Yeah.
comfortable, and I think that's half the battle. Let's talk about podcasting. I have almost 1,200 episodes live. I'm a big believer in podcasting. I think it is great for so many reasons, but why do you think it's so important?
So two big benefits for me. One is for people who want to overcome their fear of speaking, is to get used to speaking. Get used to the feeling of talking about your niche, your products, your services, your areas of expertise. The same questions come up over and over again from a podcast host. You get used to giving those same answers, and there'll be a point at which you don't even need to really prepare for a podcast because you've just said those answers so many times. So that, for me, that's that confidence comes from competence. Start speaking about what you do with podcast hosts. It's a great way. The second one is global reach, audience, network, other people's networks. I don't know your audience size, but let's say, for example, it's 10,000, 20,000. For me to speak on your podcast helps me as a business owner get exposure to other people's audiences that I'd never normally get exposure to.
And me, as somebody who's interviewing, I'm interviewing you. You're in the UK. You're doing your business. You're going to share it. This is a live podcast on, this goes live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You'll then share it in your network. And so it really expands and gets you into networks. I think it's great.
Exactly.
No,
and one last thing, which I'm sure you're aware of as well, is repurposing the content.
Absolutely.
You can take this video, YouTube, audio, everywhere, TikTok.
Yeah. And especially with StreamYard, you can repurpose it in completely amazing ways as well, which is what the platform we're using now. Let's talk about profit, right? Because I think there are people who are very comfortable making a generous profit, and then there's people who are not. But to me, I like to encourage people to be conscious capitalists, right? You can, the more money you make, the more people you can help. And so talk about how to put a value and a price on an idea, on a talk, right? I think that's where people struggle.
Yeah, of course. And like you said, the more impact you make, the more income you make, and equally, the more income you make, the more impact you can make as well. So it does build on.
Say that again for people so they can hear that. The more,
so the more income you make, the more impact you can make because you're sharing your message with the world, and then equally, the more impact you make, i.e., the more value you add to someone's life, the more income you can make as well. So it works both ways for me. And that goes to your point of how do you put a price on it? I think that you truly get paid based on how much value you're adding to other people's lives. And that's mostly shows up as a coach, consultant, service provider. Because ultimately, if you're helping transform people's lives, and that's the game we're in, transformation. Helping to transform businesses, lives, people, that's worth money to them to invest in because they're going to get a return on the investment.
Yeah, I love it. This was great. All right, Tom, you ready for a quick speed round?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Favorite book and why?
Favorite book, The Chimps Paradox, because it helps me understand what's going on in my head when it comes to confidence.
That's okay. Well, I've never heard of that book. What's it about?
The Chimps Paradox. So there's a human part of our brain which is logical. There's a chimp in our brain that's emotive and trying to protect us and trying to avoid danger. That's what stopped me from public speaking for so long, the chimp.
It's called The Chimp Paradox?
The Chimps Paradox, Dr. Steve Porter's or Parter, I think. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like a good book. That sounds like, okay, I'm going to check it out. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Best piece of wisdom is, why are you trying so hard to fit in when you were born to stand out?
That was in a movie that my kids used to watch when I used to watch with them.
I don't know where it came from, but I've heard it said to me
that was in a movie. God, I can't remember the name of the movie, but yeah, that was a line in a movie. I can't remember. Anyway, finish this sentence. One thing everybody needs to do to take that first step to start to feel comfortable speaking is
just do it. Think of what Michael Jordan said. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. you need to get out there and just start doing it and learn as you go.
Yeah. All right. I love it. Define yourself in one word.
Ambitious.
One skill set that everybody can grow to become a better speaker.
Authenticity.
I love it. Tell everybody how they can connect with you, get a hold of you, and your website, your phone number, your podcast, etc.
Absolutely. So the brand is Succeed Through Speaking, and that's the Instagram handle, the Facebook page, the website, the podcast. Just type in Succeed Through Speaking on Google, and yeah, I'll be all over the front page.
I love it. Tom, I appreciate you. What time is it there right now in the UK?
So just gone 5:30 p.m.
All right, cool. You know, as a business coach, speaking is a big part of my business, and I think it's so important. And you know, people like you who are helping people who specialize in figuring out how they can bring their message to an audience and impact and influence and really make a difference is great stuff. So I love what you're doing, and you know, there's so much fear behind speaking. So I know you're doing a great job helping people, you know, raise their frequency and vibration and the energy and the confidence and the courage when it comes to speaking. So I appreciate you being on the show. Think community, if Tom can help you, please reach out. Tom, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.